Everybody hear that? All right. We have, looks like about half a dozen people in attendance tonight at Eastgate Park. And we have about 14, 15 people online. So for July, we are doing really well. Can you guys all hear me very well? Audience, can you hear me? Good. Virtual folk, can you hear me? Looks like you can. Terrific. All right, let's kick these things off. Let's call everything to order here and get going. I assume everybody received the minutes. So I'd like to entertain, is there any discussion, any mistakes, any corrections to the minutes? Okay, get my little chat up here. All right, so since there's no discussion or corrections, can I get a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting? Anybody? I have a motion from Steve. Okay. All those in favor, anybody, all those in favor? Just let's do it the reverse, I guess. Anybody that has a problem with the minutes? Seeing none. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes unanimously? So moved by Kathleen. Okay. Moving on. Let's get our typical introduction from our police department. Captain. And I'll let you do the introduction, I guess.
It's sideways on the screen. One second. I want to talk with my back to the crowd. I want to talk with my back with the camera here. So, perfect. Great to be here again. My name is Tomczak. I'm the district commander for the North District of the city. Your CAC includes, mostly it's the North District, but of course, it'd be too easy for us to follow the exact CAC boundaries. So a little bit of your area is in the Southwest District, as odd as that sounds. A little bit is in the Northeast District, and a little bit in the Northwest District. So when we talk about crimes and numbers and things like that, I've got the statistics. The crimes that I was concerned about, and there were actually none during this month-long period. I do a little bit of research, but I'm not familiar with it at all. With me today is Sergeant Eddie Garcia, and I'm going to introduce him in just a minute after I go over the crime stats. So the one thing that I get to do today, and I have never been able to do this at a CAC before, is thank you for all your hard work. Usually the number one report taken in any CAC district is miscellaneous information reports, which are very general. Just we go out there, there's not really crime, we got to take a report. And the number two for this district and for a lot of districts is larcenies from motor vehicles, or break-ins to motor vehicles. That's been your number two report taken since I came into the district in 2022. Every single time we meet, what do you hear us say? Lock your cars, call your neighbors, see someone suspicious, everything like that. So larceny from motor vehicle has dropped from the number two report taken to the number 6 slot, which is fantastic, and went down from over 40 at the last CAC meeting, only 16 in the last month. So excellent work. I'll give credit where I think credit is due, and that's you all getting out there and doing the things we asked you to do. So unfortunately, yesterday, or not yesterday, but this past weekend, and the numbers are not in here, we had several cars in the North Hills area broken into the parking decks over in North Hills, Midtown area. So the numbers might be a little bit back up next time, but at least for this month, I just really appreciate the hard work. Nothing else really of concern in the area. The biggest, the most important violent crime we track are homicides, followed by aggravated assaults. You had no homicides in your area. You had 4 aggravated assaults. 2 of those were domestic related aggravated assaults where we arrested the suspect. One was a DWI offender on the Beltline just inside your district, where the person was not only drunk, they also tried to run over someone intentionally with their car, so that counts against us. And the other one was involved a person who was upset at people cutting down trees nearby, making noise, and they waved a gun at several people, and each one of those was separate. So it's all one report, but the person was charged with those offenses as well. So we've been arresting all 4 aggravated assaults in your area, and in terms of violent crime, all there is to it. So there's simple assaults, which are less serious, someone pushing someone, stuff like that. There's no hospitalization. That kind of stuff happens all around the city. We're less concerned with those. Most of those are domestic related as well. And other than that, the number one call for service in your area is a traffic stop, which is great. That means that the most calls in your area is actually going to be us doing traffic enforcement in your part of the city. There was a huge spike in what we call check on the welfare calls. So normally that runs like number 8 on your list, number 8 or 10. It's number 2 on your list of calls. Different than reports, these are calls. And check on the welfare was number 2, almost doubling from the last month. And I'm not sure, we did look at all those. There's no real pattern. This is when someone's concerned that someone may have fallen ill or is not responding to a phone call or things like that. I will say that with the heat, we're getting a lot of these roadside. So I see someone passed out on the grass next to Lake Forest Road and things like that. We also had several more than usual at Capitol Towers, which is in this month. So nothing really to worry about with those calls for service. Generally, we're just out there usually providing some medical assistance. You're calling EMS. And other than that, your calls for service after that are motor vehicle crashes, which are down from last time, but still one of the highest we go to. And really, it's one of the safest CACs in the city to live in. So very proud of your efforts about larcenies of motor vehicles. Lock the cars, call your neighbors, hide your valuables. Remember the other thing we said, don't leave your guns in your cars, things like that. So I am happy to take questions in a minute. I do want to give Sergeant Garcia a chance to speak though. Sergeant Eddie Garcia has been a sergeant in the North District for a little bit less than a year. I had a vacancy and I knew what we needed was Eddie. So Eddie and I have worked together for quite a while in different capacities. And if Eddie Garcia doesn't like you, there's something wrong with you. And if you don't like Eddie Garcia, there's something wrong with you. Eddie is smiling and positive, can-do attitude all the time. And that's why I wanted him over in this area. So we had, I hate to use the word kind of Eeyore, but we had an Eeyore sergeant work in this area that was a little bit kind of grumpy all the time. And I wanted Eddie over here to take care of that and balance that out with his positive attitude. Eddie's a former Marine, not never a former Marine, I apologize. I shouldn't have said nothing. Served us, Bob did too. And has just been great. He worked in field operations, in administration for a while. He was the recruiting sergeant for a while. He worked in the northwest part of the city. North part of the city, he's done community events before as part of recruiting. So I'm happy to have him on board. He's the community sergeant assigned to this area now. We did not have a sergeant for about 6 months. The chief promised me that I was getting one and she came through and delivered. So we're very, very happy. So he moved from a patrol sergeant in this area to the community sergeant in this area most recently. And that's why he's here. So I will let Eddie say things about himself and then we'll take questions.
Thank you, thank you. Appreciate it, very excited to work, I like to say, you know, for you, but also more importantly with you, getting some issues solved and learning the area, learning the assignment. I just started about 2.5 weeks ago, so as I get settled and get comfortable with the assignment and my responsibilities, of course, I want to make myself available. I have my contact information. I have a stack of business cards in the back, so please take them. Communicate with me, anything that you may need or anything that we can help you with in the neighborhood. I'm here for it. So communication is key. I will not take long to communicate. If you send me an email, a text, a phone call, if I miss it, I will reply back, you know, within 24 hours. Just give me a minute to get it back to you. But other than that, super excited to be here. Super excited to work with everyone. And I'm here for anything anyone needs. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Welcome aboard.
I had one more thing I wanted to talk about, and I apologize. Eddie was it's good to work in pairs. There's one thing, the other one has to choose to think about what they forgot to talk about. So we, over the past 2 weekends, we responded to a large group of teenagers over at North Hills Park of Chowan, which is in your CAC. I don't know if anyone who lives in that area is here now. But we've worked with parks. They've got a gate there now that closes at 10 o'clock. The park closes at 10 o'clock. And so that gate should be coming down, and we will be out there for the next couple of weekends. Because if people are in the park at 9:15, as we found out this past weekend, they still can let other people into the park as they try to leave. So we're gonna get a handle on this. The biggest problem going on out there was noise from the stereos from cars and some underage drinking. So, but we are aware of it. This has not been on the radar, full road calls for service for the last year. This is just something that we've been made aware of in the last couple of weeks, but they've had 2 really good weekends out there. We are not going to give them a third.
Good.
So, you know, on top of that, I promise. I also see that the fixings of a gate are coming to your park as well. So we have not had the problems we had last year with shots fired in the park. I think the concentrated patrols in the area and a couple of the charges in the area probably picked up. So I apologize for not bringing that the first time, but Sergeant Garcia and I are happy to take questions. And if we don't know the answer, we'll definitely get the answer for you for next week.
You want to address Hardemont?
Oh, I can, so,
I know you told me, but
yeah, so Larry asked about Hardemont Road, motor vehicle crashes since the traffic calming measures were put in place. So he asked this morning, so we did the best rough research we could do. We looked at the calls for service since, motor vehicle crash calls for service since that stuff was put in place versus the same 2.5, 3 month period. I think I looked 3 months. I don't remember exactly when it was installed. About 3 months. Does that sound about right there?
they started in April. They finished up June.
Okay, I pulled 3 months, so I pulled a little bit too much, but 3 months and 3 months, and I cut it in, I think I cut it in May, June, July is what I did. And then I looked at the 3 months before that, there's about twice as many wrecks before that stuff went in. Now, before anyone jumps on me, you know, say, I am not, that's a fact, but before you jump on me, I don't know that it has anything to do with traffic calming devices. So Hardemont Road's a big road, and I couldn't dig down into the individual wrecks, but we did have about twice as many wrecks.
And in 1999, the first to command a mission aboard one. Yeah.
Twice as many wrecks for the 3 months prior versus the 3. I'm not drawing please do not say, I'm not saying it's a causation issue. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. There could be no correlation at all, could be coincidence. Like I said, we only looked at it this morning. So we'll look at it a little bit deeper and see that.
I think part of your initial pretty much made include some of that initial construction time, which was some of the worst time out there.
Yeah, it could have been. I don't know exactly. I did the best that I could. We'll look into it again, but the wrecks have definitely decreased in the last from May 1 to current day is a half of what it was for the 3 months prior. And I'm not saying it's just is what it is. I'm not trying to draw a correlation. I'm certainly not trying to draw causation, which I don't know that would be true. Some of the wrecks on Hardemont, as I was looking at them, pulled up at Hardemont Wake Forest, that's going to have nothing to do with that stuff. So I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe slowing people down here slows them down at the intersection. I don't think so. But we'll take a deeper dive for the next meeting. We just kind of got caught this morning with that question. But that's a great point. I need to get the exact data stuff. So we'll look into that for the next meeting. Any other questions?
Yeah, that was my question. Thanks, Larry, for asking ahead of time, because I always ask it at the moment. So it's not a question you can answer on the fly.
So there's my card with my email address. There's Sergeant Garcia's card with his email address. Email us, give us about a week for data stuff, because we have to get the data, look through the data, get rid of the data that makes the police department look. I'm just joking. So we got to look at the data. We got to figure out what is or is not applicable. Like, I don't know that the wrecks at Wake Forest and Hardemont are applicable, even though they list Hardemont Road wrecks. And so we'll be able to sit there and narrow it down. And then what we can actually do, give enough time, and it does take time, is pull up each individual wreck report and see if we believe that that had anything to do with it. But that takes a long time.
That's great. And I know Councilor Jones is on the call here, and they're asking for that too. So
Okay.
I bet y'all they could get wrapped together. But I have a second question. I was hoping Sergeant Garcia, could you tell us what a community officer, a community sergeant does? How's your job and role here?
Yeah.
Different than a patrol officer.
Of course, and I'll tell you what, one of the biggest, I was talking with some of the guys that I was a supervisor on patrol, and I say, you know, we work together, but it's two different responsibilities. And I say, you know, working as a community sergeant, you're literally trying to take the weight off the shoulders of the patrol officers. So we want to deal with the things that maybe don't require an immediate response or an emergency response. So when I come in the morning, I look at all the reports that happened from the shifts before. I analyze them to see what needs follow up. I call, I meet with the captain. So I do everything that basically takes the pressure away from the patrol officers.
I mean, that's short and sweet, you know, to this point. Yeah, I'll follow with that too. So really the role and I think each captain has their own, what they use the community officers for is individuals with the different district captains. I only had one, Matt Winkle, as you'll know, for quite a while. And now I've got two. And the way that I see their role, because we are still very short-staffed in the police department, is their job is to look, as they said, at those chronic issues that patrol doesn't have a chance to 12-hour shift to deal with. So, would anyone for applause like to guess what the highest call volume location in the city is? If you think about it, it's not one.
Feel small.
No, close. It's a business. Maybe if we amalgamated all of North Hills, it might be. It's the Walmart. And the Hope Church Road. They are killing us. So one of Sergeant Garcia's first jobs when I got him here is to figure out what can we do to reduce the amount of calls for service we're getting at Walmart. Some of them are shoplifting calls, some of them are loitering calls, some of them are suspicious vehicle calls, but these are 911 driven calls. These aren't like cops getting out there doing. This is 911 driven, and it's 1725 New Hope Church Road. If I ever know your address off the top of my head like that, you're in trouble. And so one of the first things Sergeant Garcia's got to do is assess that and figure out what can we do to reduce the amount of calls on patrol, because we are short-handed. So he's going to address, and Matt Winkle will address chronic problems, first and foremost, that can't be solved in a 12-hour period. That's a lot. The other thing that they do is they handle a lot of the, if you ever use C-Click Fix, or you ever email code enforcement, if they come to this area, Sergeant Garcia and Officer Winkle are going to handle it, because most of those are abandoned vehicle calls and things like that. And those require an initial observation with documentation and then follow up 7 days later. And patrol works are rotating. They're not 7 days later. I don't know who's working. So what we want to make sure is if we tag a car saying it's been abandoned on the street, I want the same officer out there towing that car. I don't want someone else to have to guess. Is this really tagged? The officer make a mistake under the date on the tag. So they'll go tag a car, take a picture of it. So if you scrape the tag, but you don't move the car, we got your picture. We're going to tow it anyway. And so that's the other part that they do in my mind. And then the last thing they do, and he knows, at the end of the day, when the chips are down, what are you doing? Answering calls. Answering calls. It's almost like he took on more work than a good job, because at the end of the day, when all things are, when we're just getting it handed to us, he's answering calls. And Matt went to us, and I am too. I went to a call right down on Land Road earlier today where we were tied up and the officer needed to check in. So that's the job at the end of the day. So that was a great question. I think for asking, I couldn't have answered it. That's a great question.
I think there's one more question in the back row, Jeff.
Yes, I think it's two. Actually. Go ahead.
Oh, two more.
Got the microphone.
Yeah.
And my question is around guns. So I guess like in essence, what are you doing in prevention of citywide, and then what is the scope of how you're dealing with guns on a daily basis in our area? I live near Shelley Lake.
So I think I might need to rephrase your question. So I don't know, guns as an issue is very broad. So what do you mean by guns as an issue?
Guns and gun violence, like guns being left in cars as a problem. Guns as a problem at a park, like
I mean, you can carry it in the city park if you have a concealed carry.
you can, yes, but aggressive behavior with them, or
So
So I'm trying to get a feel for what that's like.
So what I will tell you is that guns have become commonplace in our line of work now. When I started, if you got a gun out of a car or on stop or stopping somebody, it was a rarity. And now it's more rare to find stop a car and not have a gun. And so the proliferation of firearms, I think, is just a phenomenon. I don't know if the police department can do anything about that. We certainly can't stop people from owning guns if they have the ability to own a gun. There are people who cannot. The problem with the illegal possession of guns is it's complicated. So North Carolina is an open carry state.
Right, I mean, we're safe that we don't have a red flag law, when you have some DV issues, we don't have safe storage law, so concerns about gun violence are,
We all are, but I think that the police are very limited in what we can do. We can only enforce the laws
right,
that are written, and we do, and we take them very seriously. One of the things we do in this district is every time there's a report of a shots fired, call, my officers write a detailed report. They're expected to go there, get out of their cars, walk around, look for shell casings, look for damage to houses. And I know that they do because I read every report that they write in this district. I think that
I was thinking the health department is also becoming involved because they look on the gun injuries, say, for the health process,
Yes.
not just violence, but the suicide and children and all, so it's not merely a policing issue, it's really a issue for a wider.
an extensive community-wide.
I agree, and we are, unfortunately, I think we're the most visible aspect of it because people think that it's our job to, and I'm not quoting you, I'm just telling you what I hear all the time, get the guns out of the community.
Yeah.
We can't do that. So what we can do, and we do it, is if we have someone with a gun and we're able to take that gun lawfully from them because they're violating the law, we will do it. We'll do everything in our power to give that gun back to them. By law in North Carolina, guns that are seized for evidence cannot be destroyed. They have to be sold. So what we do as a police department is sell them not in North Carolina. We sell them in another state. So we're doing everything we can to follow the law and do everything we can to get guns out of the community that are being used or carried or possessed in illegal fashion. But we offer gun locks that are free. The problem is that people who are leaving their guns in the front seat of their cars are also not getting gun locks. So I think we're doing a good job of what we can with that. It terrifies me. It terrifies me where we're headed, and I hope that we will continue to get the support to enforce the gun laws that we have. And I don't know what the answer is for future stuff, and I just don't. But I'm with you. It terrifies me to go there. And one of the jobs that I have, and I've spoken about before, in charge of our crisis negotiation team, so we can call out when someone threatening suicide with a gun, and it can be resolved very quickly. They call my team out, and those are awful. I mean, I can tell you that we have responded to calls of a citizen on the side of the road, or locking their house with a gun, threatening to hurt themselves, and that makes it dangerous for us too. So
Yeah,
it terrifies me. I'm with you. I don't know what the answer is.
I don't expect you to have one. really.
But I promise you, we're doing everything that we can, and I love it when my guys get them. When we get guns off people that don't deserve to have them, there's a picture of it on the wall of the squad room with the name of the officer that got it, the date they got it, and they get a nice congratulations, nice work from me, because I read all the books.
Mike, am I correct in believing that the number of violations, gun violations from permitted concealed carry people is very small? People who are permitted to conceal carry, I would think would be a small part of the
I
problem.
don't know. The biggest problem that I've seen in my district with the people who are actually have concealed handgun permits is we get them and they've been consuming both substance or alcohol.
Well, that's, they know better.
Well, they do. They told them we take the gun because that's a violation and we charge them. But so I don't really, and I'm not trying to evade your question, but my simple answer is if everything's right, I never get a report. So I honestly don't know the answer. But I would suspect that, so there's just so many out there.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with those guns, straw purchases, when someone who legitimately can buy a gun, buys a gun, and then sells to someone who shouldn't be able to have a gun. These are big issues that the whole country addresses.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned staffing issues, is there, I don't know if this is like there are parts of the city or worse than others, but like the turnaround time, specifically I had a porter, car was going, got returned to the same parking lot. Then while they were waiting for a police to show up for support, they got someone who was for the same people. We walked in, looking for suits and get away their cars. So I don't know if there's like a turnaround time that we want to expect, or when you call 911, we're like, okay, it's a low priority, we expect it to take so many hours.
So a motor vehicle theft is a low priority for us because there's not a current danger to anyone. So our higher priority calls are going to be where there's life in danger or chance of injury, and then there's property in danger or chance of property damage. Motor vehicle theft, largely motor vehicles, that stuff's going to fall to the bottom. And depending on how we're looking, it might be, it wouldn't surprise me to have an hour and a half response to that.
So specifically was a Kia, which I know is a huge problem, getting stolen. I don't know if there's any like Kia has tried to contact people on their whatever software update, so it's not as easy as you guys are involved in anything about spreading the word about updating Kia.
We are, there's been plenty of stuff on social media from the department about that. We had almost 1,000 steering wheel locks provided to us by Kia and Hyundai. Then we are out. We're passing all out to people. So someone's looking at someone giving it. I think the staffing issue is difficult for those who've been in the department for a long time. It's difficult for us to handle because we've always had more people than, more cops, enough cops to go and do surveillance programs and other stuff. And we're short-handed. We're not the only ones. It's tough. This is a tough job right now. But I would say that what you will probably see in the future, you're seeing a little bit of it now is staggered response times and dispatching based on public calls done very carefully. And in fact, Eddie heard me on the radio do it today. Every call that goes out, when my guys are strapped, I'm pulling up the call. I'm seeing, do we need to respond to this now? Do I have to get someone from another area to come here? Or can I change the priority of this call as a captain and then call the person back and say, I just don't have anyone. I'm sorry, we're gonna get there. We'll get there. We're not saying no to you. We're just saying no right now. And it is frustrating. I still take Rex, which is, I think, I know this is being recorded and used against me, but I will put my record as either captain in this city. I take more Rex from you than either captain because it makes me cry when I think someone's waiting an hour for us to get into the crash. It makes me cry. They're in the road, they're upset, someone's at fault, someone's not at fault, there's a victim, there's a bad guy, whatever it is. And I promise you, I'm as upset as anyone else because I feel like when you call, we should be there no matter what. And the truth is, I've had to adjust my mental process because I have to understand that if it is a theft, a motor vehicle theft or a car stolen, we can't promise to be there in half an hour. It's just not feasible in this reality that we're living in right now. And unfortunately, when you look at cities like Chicago and Detroit, they have that kind of response to me now. I mean, they don't even come out and look at the break-ins in Chicago. They're like, okay, whatever. And we're headed that way probably. We've got a lot of online reporting now for things like that. And we will not fingerprint cars in many situations depending on what's going on with the staff.
Right, Steve, just give me a second. I'm gonna let Christina ask a question from our online audience. Go ahead, Christina.
Hey guys, Christina Jones. Hi, Captain Tomczak. How are you? It's always good to see you. I first of all want to say thank you, Captain Tomczak. At my meeting last month, your son came with 2 other friends and sat through my entire 2-hour meeting and asked questions. So I'm really, really happy. He's a high school student, so I love that we're getting some youth involved in community engagement. So thank you for that. But my question has to do with if you could please let everyone know about National Night Out. We are super excited. In our neighborhood, we will be celebrating again for I think like the 4th year. But I really think that if more neighborhoods knew about it, then they would be requesting more. So I'd love for you to speak just for a moment on National Night Out.
Actually, I'm gonna pass.
Great.
He's in charge of National Night Out for the North District, if that's okay.
Yes.
Eddie, Georgia.
We have been working on National Night Out August 1st. We're gonna be starting in different communities from 5 to 8. And big announcement is that at the North Hills area, North Hills Mall at the amphitheater side, we'll be doing a dunk tank where Chief Patterson, Captain Tomczak, and I will be in the tank.
Can't wait.
For charity. So if you can, spread the word and join us over there. Not just there, we're also doing several communities up off of Sandy Forks. So we'll be all over the area, but definitely August 1st between 5 and 8. The North Hill one will be between 6 and 7:30. So we'll be there hanging out. We'll have all the toys and supposedly we're gonna have the SWAT team truck, the bomb truck, the drone, horses, motorcycles. It's gonna be a really, really big deal. So please spread the word around the community. Join us over there August 1st. So if we can get there and get the captain in the water a couple times, that'd be great. So
You may have to block off some parking for us.
So
Thank you guys so much.
Okay, is that it? That's
I think Steve is,
Just really quickly, compliments. First of all, your motorcycle squad was a few weeks ago doing the Millbrook run. And obviously very successful. So that was great. But you mentioned motorcycle squad. One thing people may not know, they participate in Ride, Safe, and City, where they actually do a classroom session and then take motorcyclists out for a pair of rides. They do a short ride for 45 and they do a long ride for a little over an hour. And it's a great program. And it was a pleasure. I took part in it in the last festival. And just a blast meeting those 5 guys. They are incredible riders. And it's great that they participate in it. So it's one of the things they do, probably nobody would know about, but yeah, what a great day hanging with them.
Well, they love it too. They love it a lot better than Wayne Tech. But so the program is called Bike Safe, and you should be able to find it. It's a North Carolina program. Raleigh Police Department does offer Bike Safe classes. They're usually about 6 or 7 a year. We do have some materials up in the local bike shops, motorcycle shops. So it is a great class. I took it myself. So I rode for several years and took that class. And since I was their lieutenant at the time, they were merciless in critiquing my riding. But one of the things they do if they're a rider is they're like, hey, you thought about doing this, you should do this, it's a little safer to do this. And so it's really a great way, if you're a rider, to have someone else watch your riding style, I would describe it as, and take home a few tips about how to be a safer rider. So thank you for that. I'll pass it along. Great bunch of guys. Yes, ma'am.
Just a question for those of us who don't remember, could you please explain what National Night Out is again? It's somewhere in the back file.
So National Night Out was a program that was started over 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I think. It was in response to violence in communities. And August 1st of each year, citizens just on their own in their communities decided that we're essentially going to take back the night. And so it was where they got together and had parties, invited the police department to come and join them in their neighborhood get-togethers and things like that. So that's all it is a community event where the neighborhood and the officers get together, meet each other if they don't have time to do that before, and kind of take back the night for one night, for lack of a better word. Although the night ends at about 7:30, 8 o'clock. So, but I think it's great. So it's developed into a lot of neighborhood cookouts, and then some places get like snow cone trucks. A lot of stuff is just whatever the neighborhood brings together. A lot of places, the neighborhood pitches in and gets rents. Some things like North Hills has a dunk tank that they're doing, and then the police department really it's all hands on deck for getting out to as many places as we can. And some of the tools like the motorcycle squad to come out to these things so people know what's available if needed. We have a lot of specialty units and a lot of special equipment that we use if needed, and most people don't hear about it. I will say one thing. I know I'm going just a bit over, Larry, but I want to say something that I think I want to point out a fault that we have as well. So that's my fault. And Chief Patterson has said something about this, and that I think that the Raleigh police officers you meet are probably the most humble police officers you'll ever meet. So we're not up there on our chests getting awards. We have so few awards. We can as Chief Patterson came, she's like, I want this award, officer of the month in each area. I want this award. I want this award. And we're like, man, we're just like doing our job. It's the way that it is. And so you'll see a lot of equipment nationally out that you won't see that we use regularly. You just don't hear about. So we're certainly not the ones getting up there and pounding our chests and look at us, look at us. So we prefer to think of ourselves, I think, as quiet protectors of your neighborhood. So if you don't see us, it doesn't mean we're not there. We're just not out there on social media, beating our chests and things like that.
Well, from our viewpoint, we appreciate your service and we appreciate your being here.
I know I thank you. Yes, sir.
Does the department have enough funds appropriated from the city for your budget to?
Well, so first of all,
We don't have a half an hour now.
yeah, I don't think nobody used for that. So I think that's a question that the chief can answer better. I know that one of the biggest things we are concerned about right now is recruiting and retention, and a lot of other agencies in Wake County are starting at higher rates than us, higher pay rates, and it's very tough. And the city has a lot of tremendous benefits, don't get me wrong, but to a 21-year-old, you can't talk to them about what their 401k might look like or their health insurance might look like in 30 years. They're like, oh, I can go work in Cary for $7,000 a year more right off the bat. See you. So I think we need to do a real honest assessment about how our pay is compared to other departments in the area. And then they have other things we can offer, such as they take home cars, which we offer some take home cars, but you know, Raleigh's a big city. We're slated to have almost 800 police officers. So I don't know the answer to that. I would say no. I don't think that we're paying the young officers enough. But you know, whatever we can do to get people in here. So I don't like some vacancies. It makes me sick. I'm going to dodge that question the best I can.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time tonight, and like I say, we always appreciate having you here.
You've got our email, something, and want us, especially if you want something ahead of time, email us. We'll get here for better for worse. We're always going to tell you the truth, whether we want to tell you or not. If you ask us, you're going to hear it straight from us.
You mean my email late Sunday night wasn't good enough?
Sergeant Garcia said, hey, you pull the stat somewhere. We'll pull something.
We appreciate it. All right. Next, we have our featured guest. I think you've all been notified by me by email about the development that's going to occur probably on Dartmouth Road. And first of all, in the room, are there any residents from the Dartmouth Road area? I see we have a couple online. So the best thing for me is to introduce the speakers, and then we'll do a follow-up question answer after the speakers. So let's see, get my names right here. Brian, I guess you want to lead off, and I think you could unmute and share your screen if you need to. This is Ryan Eldridge with Affinity Building Company.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you all
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. I believe Phillip Marquis is going to lead off here, and I will start to share my screen right after Phillip introduces himself, and then I'll go into my part.
Hey everybody, I'm Phillip Marquis. I'm with Marquis Realty. Just want to thank you, Larry, and everybody this evening for giving us the opportunity to share, and being called a featured guest is pretty great. I'm actually joined as well with Wes Stickway, who's another licensed realtor with Marquis Realty, and of course Ryan Eldridge with Affinity Building Co. And just real briefly, we want to share with you a North Hills home project that we've been working on for a little while now, particularly in the Farrior Hills neighborhood. We've been working on this for a few months, and we're excited now that we're in the phase of just spreading awareness and really just talking to the community to get their feedback. We have a informative website that Ryan just pulled up that we're going to share. That site is actually live now online. So if anyone wants to refer back to that later, you can just go to that site. There's we're going to open it up to questions also after Ryan's done talking, but there's also a information down below that you can reach out to us with any questions too. Yeah, and so I'll go ahead and let thank you, Ryan. I'll go ahead and let Ryan go ahead and take it from here.
Awesome. Thanks, Phillip. Thanks for having us, Larry. I appreciate it. I'm sorry that I'm not on site. I'm currently traveling with my family, and hope that this runs long so that I can avoid bedtime for my 2- and 4-year-olds. So please, we encourage lots and lots of questions. And as Phillip mentioned, we have been working on this project for a while, but the information that we'll be presenting is probably pretty high level. And the idea is that we really want to open this up to a community conversation. You know, we want engagement on this project. We want to understand the questions that you all may have so that we can have a more successful project. So as you've seen this, the screen swirling around here, the site is located at 216 and 220 Dartmouth Road. That is close to, I guess the side street is Lambeth. And right behind it, you'll see Kane Land. The larger Kane development is on the backside. There are 2 lots here that we have under contract with the proposed project. So 216 and 220, these are two lots. And the first thing that I think you'll notice about these lots, they sit below the street. So these lots sit about 10 feet below the street. And so I want to get into the site before I get into the proposed project. And that's kind of how this website flows. So just bear with me, if you will. And I just want to at least orientate everybody's thoughts and minds to where this project is and what we're trying to do. So the site sits a little low. There is a drainage ditch that runs across 216, empties here into 220, and then runs further into the back corner of the lot. There's about 14 feet of fall across these lots to the back corner. And these 2 homeowners have tried to mitigate this water issue, but that's one of the biggest things about this site that we're looking to mitigate. There's really not much of a tree canopy on the site as a whole. There's a good tree canopy around the site. The trees in the rear, that's all from Kane's green space associated with his project to the rear. And in the left here is, it's an alleyway from the city. And if you see that here, I'll pull this up larger. There's an alleyway here it's really just a gravel road currently. It's not being used. It's an unused alleyway. It hasn't been abandoned, so I guess the city could use it at some point, but I do not believe that's the intention of the city at this point. What else do we have? The site. It is at the end of Farrior Hills. I don't know if anybody on the call is within Farrior Hills as the specific community, but this is kind of at the end of the community. And as I did talk about before, it backs up to this residential mixed use area behind that Kane's developed. So now that we've seen the site, I'd like to talk a little bit about the vision of what we would like to do. And please keep in mind that this is really an inspirational photo that attempts to demonstrate what we'd like to create here. The word townhomes floating around a lot, and townhome immediately has pretty negative connotations with a lot of folks. And our goal first and foremost with this is to create a development that feels and even functions like a single family in many respects. We're shying away from the very modern rooftop terraced kind of development projects that you're seeing around Raleigh. We want to create more of a gable style roof, something that looks like it could blend in with maybe the new builds that are currently happening in the community. So that's the first and foremost. Design is going to be very critical to us. Secondly, garages. This is always a big sticking point for me with townhomes, and I'm sure anybody else that thinks about townhomes in the greater sense. Given the slope nature of this lot, the way that we'd like to develop it is to have rear load garages that are basement level. So one thing that really struck me about the site was that I don't think it sets up really well for a lot of the single family homes that you're seeing built today. But what it does set up well for is utilizing the slope to allow us to create a basement level so that all of our garages will be hidden. They'll be behind the houses that you'll see, the homes. And more importantly, that allows us to create a very walkable, livable streetscape. We want to add to the trees. We want to create a very kind of an urban walkable nature to the site where we have heavily landscaped front yards that really encourage the interaction of not only neighbors, but the community as a whole. This is a short walk to everything that North Hills has to offer. And that's who we feel like we're designing and building these homes for, is a buyer that wants a low maintenance lifestyle with the ability to walk to dinner in the park and to the show across the street, and everything that North Hills and Midtown has to offer. So we are very early in our planning here. There is a stream buffer in the rear, and so we're working with environmental, and so we don't have a firm plot plan with exactly how many units that we'll have. We're working through that. We feel strongly it'll be between 6 and 10, and not all those will be attached. There will be a combination of potentially a 2 and a 3 unit on the lot. And yeah, we're excited about the project. I think that's probably everything that I wanted to touch on. I'm trying to keep it short and sweet here. Phillip, is there anything else you want to touch on with the site as a whole? I mean, again, we wanted to get feedback, and we really wanted to hear what the community thought about what we plan to do. And so we'd like to open up for questions as soon as possible. But Phillip, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I
regarding
didn't know if you just wanted to show, there were a few other images, scrolling through on the side. You click those little dots there.
The dots?
Go down a little bit. Yep. And that'll sort of go through and give you an idea of some of the conceptual ideas about the rear loading garages. That's important for us also to keep in line with the rest of the neighborhood. And then, obviously everything is still conceptual, but, estimated price points, we're still early stages for that. But we're probably looking low $1 million range, somewhere around there. Depending on how things get built and obviously costs, which is Ryan's wheelhouse. So, but yeah, no, I think that pretty much sums most of it up on a high level.
Yeah. Thank you, Phillip. So yeah, we'd love to hear some feedback from, community members and questions. And obviously we've made this public. Everybody can view this. This is our presentation material here. So please, there's contact information down here. If anybody wants to talk directly with myself or with Phillip about our intentions and what we plan to do and how we plan to do it, we'd love to hear from you. I didn't want to be a talking head up here. I wanted to answer any questions that you may have and go from there.
Okay, well, thank you very much. If you take your presentation down.
Oh, okay.
I know we have people online that do live in the Farrior Hills subdivision. I'm going to bring up the obvious. You take down your presentation?
Oh, yeah. I'll stop video. Is that good?
No, you got to actually take down. Stop showing.
Right. Stop sharing.
Stop sharing. There you go.
All right. I think I've stopped sharing. Is that?
All right.
It says that I've stopped on my end, Larry. I don't know what it says on your end, but.
Ryan's.
Yeah.
Ryan has to stop sharing.
Right.
Okay. Can you,
Yeah.
Ryan has to stop sharing.
Can you
Is it
tell me?
Ryan or is it?
All right, sorry.
Yeah.
How do I? Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. I hit pause. My apologies. Luckily, I'm not an IT guy. I'm a builder.
Hey, I'm
builder,
having the same
not a
problem here,
tech
so we're all
builder.
right. And
I think
we'll take
there's
back here to gallery so we can see everybody in one shot here.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to open it up with some comments and then we'll take as many questions as we can get. First of all, what you didn't mention is I guess you guys are going to come in under missing middle guidelines. There are a couple of concerns over missing middle. We have spoken to the city extensively about missing middle, and there is a current lawsuit going on about missing middle. One of the things that's a problem with missing middle is the obvious, is one, notification. My understanding of missing middle is it's not a rezoning, and you only have to notify people within 100 feet of the development. That's not many houses. So there's no way for the public to follow your development or the progress on that development. The second one is obviously cost. Missing middle was targeted to add affordable housing. There have been no examples that I know of where missing middle has done anything but the opposite, where it has taken lots with affordable homes and recreated either new single homes or townhomes at a much higher price level. So that's a community concern. I think you should have, as we lay out in the comprehensive plan, you should have housing for everybody. Now, it turns out that Dartmouth in particular is loaded with, how should I say it, improved homes. Being close to North Hills, it's a very desirable area, and you know that, I'm sure. That's why you've targeted this area. And so it's not unusual to see a small ranch home disappear and a multi-million-dollar home go back up. It's getting to be where this particular part of Dartmouth is becoming a neighborhood of itself. It's like multiplying by rabbits, I guess. So those are the concerns from the neighborhood itself, and you can address any of these at some point if you'd like. And the other thing, I guess, is Dartmouth itself. Those that are not familiar with Dartmouth, Dartmouth is a common connector to get out of traffic off of Six Forks and try to get over to Wake Forest Road through the community. The city, not the neighborhood, put speed humps on Dartmouth to slow people down. That's just the city's point of view of what Dartmouth needed at the time. The neighbors didn't approve the speed presentation, but the city went ahead and imposed it anyway. So if you're going to be adding townhomes, especially 12 units, that means you're going to have a dense population, multiple cars entering onto a road that was never intended to carry the type of traffic it's going to have. Now, I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just saying it's the environment that you're building into. That's the pluses and minuses of townhomes. It's called just more density, more driveways, more cars, more people. It's just not the best environment to create townhomes. Now, if you create townhomes as you've outlined in 2-3 units, and they look comparable to the neighborhood that they're moving into, that's a big plus. It doesn't look good when you build something that's 45 feet high next to a rancher that's maybe 25 feet high. It sticks out like a sore thumb. So I'm only raising all these issues from my point of view to give you something to consider before I open it up to the audience. And I'm going to do that right now. We'll just kind of go from there. So, audience, questions? Lindsay.
Do you want us to speak to those questions?
I'd rather you wait. Let's take the
Okay.
questions from the
Sure.
audience, then we'll come back as a kind of a general conversation.
Because I think there's also some questions in the chat also that are popping up as well.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to get to too. I was going to ask people to just put their questions into the chat and we will address those in time. Lindsay.
Just 2 points really.
Sure, that thing is on. I hear you just as well without
The
it.
light is on, but well, they can better online better.
Oh, okay.
2 points really. I have a problem with pointing out the negativity of townhomes. I call a townhome my home. So you might want to rework that with the phrasing of your presentation because that doesn't help you. And then luxury. I know I'm not the only one who's tired of seeing luxury. So you're presenting luxury townhomes that are in the $1 million range that are not attainable for the average person. So, and also framing it from literally the beginning of your presentation about like townhomes being negative, like that's really not a great presentation. So it's not a really, a win us over when so many people across the community are struggling and you're just offering $1 million townhomes.
Okay, anybody else in the audience before we get to chat?
I would make an observation that, one of the unique things that makes this even a possibility is that you have two adjacent lots on the market at the same time, become available. And that leads to, options other than just putting one house in place of an older house. I think at Hillendale here, rather than that happened, and they put 3 houses onto what were formerly 2 fairly large lots, and the restrictive covenants that they could go now. So one of the options for this property, I don't, that maybe other than townhouses, we just put more lots, more houses on the lots. But I think the reality is in this desirable neighborhood, the people who own those lots don't want to give them away. They want to get the best money that they can and put the burden of affordable housing on them when they're trying to sell their house or car or whatever is asking a lot. And but I think the other alternative is, can that property be used in a different way to put on 3 houses, even if they're luxury houses or not? I think it's, I always feel very uneasy talking about these problems when you're asking someone else to put the bill for them, not you.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay, let's try to get to chat. Hope you guys are keeping track so we can maybe get to all these later on. I'll try to adjust what's in chat now.
The flood, there was only a question about, is that a floodway or a floodplain?
I don't know if you heard Kathleen or not. There was a question whether it's a floodplain or a, what was that?
Floodway.
There's a
Floodway.
stream buffer in the rear. Would you like for us to comment now, Larry, or wait?
Yeah, I
or-
guess I'm throwing a lot on you, and maybe before we get too many questions and too many things for you to answer, is maybe go ahead and let you guys respond and then come back in later with more questions. Maybe that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
I'd like to address one thing though before you start. There was a question of the number of units, and my understanding of missing middle, I think you guys can go up to, first I assume it'll be a subdivision with the 2 lots, and then you can come in with, I think, as many as 12 units between the 2 lots. Is that correct?
Yeah, it all has to do with size and scope, and we can probably go with more units, but we don't think that would be beneficial as a whole. We're trying to understand what makes the most sense, right? And I hear everyone. We do have a housing issue, right? I mean, we have a housing crisis across our country, and missing middle, the intention is to provide more housing options to a more diverse housing demographic. Is this project doing everything to meet missing middle? No, it's definitely not. But what we are doing is providing a substantially more affordable option than what new construction is being built today in Farrior Hills. So what I would love to show is just the recent sales of all the new construction homes in Farrior Hills. And obviously I can't afford $1 million house. and I get that this is not missing middle in the sense that everybody wants it to be. I think our goal here is to try to pave a path, maybe that missing middle could continue to expand upon, what we're doing. But anyway, before I get sidetracked, I would like to show a CMA and just to show that the last homes that have sold. Is it okay for me to share my screen again?
Sure.
Just give me 1 second. So thank you, for everybody and their questions and feedback. So here, hopefully you can see this on the screen, but the sales price is listed over here, and Phillip can probably go into this, but these top two, these sales prices were at 800 and 835. That's the market for the lot value of these two units in Farrior Hills as a whole. 115 Reynolds was bought by a builder for lot value. I know this builder. They intend to put a single family on this, and it will be $4 million probably, somewhere between 3 and 5 million. I don't know this builder. I assume this was purchased for for lot value, but I can't speak to that. Starting here, this was a single family new construction. 1.2, and then here you see these numbers just move up substantially. These represent the last 6 months of sales.
Real quick, the 1.2 million, that was built in 2000. So now it's over a 23, 24-year-old home.
Yep. Gotcha. Thank you. So new construction then would start here at 2.6, Phillip? Yeah. Okay. So 2.6, 2.7, 3.1, 3.5, and 4.6. I think we all can agree that obviously Farrior Hills and it has changed quite substantially, and these are the new construction sales that have most recently sold. While I know what we're providing is not meeting the needs of the many, it's a substantially less priced home than what has been presented over the last 6 months in the new construction market. Phillip, do you want to say anything to that as the realtor here, please?
The only thing I'll add to that, and I'm sorry, it's hard to hear a little bit from the audience, but I believe there was a comment on how we describe the townhomes as being negative. That and apologizes that coming across as that our words. That's definitely not our words. That was more the feedback that we were getting from the community and talking with the community one-on-one in Farrior Hills, that the townhomes would come into that neighborhood, just the word townhome, because I love townhomes as well, very much so. So just addressing and trying to put some clarification to that.
Thank you.
Okay. There is a question in the chat relative to the walkway into the North Hills shopping area. And I just want to let the audience know that the side street that you mentioned is not where that walkway is supposed to go. But Kane was supposed to put in the walkway, and that was supposed to come, I believe, at the next alleyway, and I don't recall the name of the street, but it is not the alleyway that is next to the properties and that you're discussing here. So that should take care of that. And as far as the status of that, hey, that's in Kane's ballpark, and I don't know if it'll ever happen.
That's triggered by a certain number of square feet of retail that they have not reached yet. So
In terms of the walkway?
The walkway is compelled to be built at like 200,000 square feet of retail or something. And last time I called the department and checked, there's like 180.
Oh, so they're close, but they haven't reached it yet. Okay, that was from Dwight Otwell, saying that he thinks it still is going to happen as far as walkway up from. Oh, it definitely will hit that mark.
We'll see. And like that was just for Midtown Central. So now the other stuff is a different set of like.
There's a building scheduled to go on the only open parking lot in North Hills East. That should do it. Yeah, it's gonna be, there are two, a 23 and a 26-story building at some point will be built. So yeah, they will tip that point at some point, but it's not gonna be on the street next to this development. That's the point. It's a little further down the street, I think. I'm trying to think, let's go through these and come back. Yeah, the 10 to 12 units, that was a question, I guess. Question for me, just in general and for the audience's benefit. As you noted, most of the builders that are buying up the smaller single-family homes are building new single-family homes. For what I understand, it's a better profit margin for the developer to build a single-family home, which kind of goes against missing middle, as opposed to building a multifamily complex. Is that true for you as well? And why did you decide to go this route rather than just going ahead and building single family homes?
Honestly, I love the idea of missing middle, and I'm tired of seeing 6,000 to 7,000 square foot homes being built in all these communities. I want to see a different product type being offered that can reach the current demographic of households. Households are changing today. I saw a stat today from the AARP. I think it was 28% of households are single people living alone. 20% are nuclear families. You literally have 50% more people that are single living than a nuclear family. And that's what we're building for today. That's the housing market. And one of the reasons that makes this very difficult is because this is harder to do, right? It's harder for me to build a project like this in a community that has been traditionally a single family zone community. And most builders don't want to deal with it. It is easier to build single family, sure. And I think there are plenty of people to buy it. I think this site sets up incredibly well for this type of project. And I think it can be a win-win for the community as a whole. And I think we can really add some character to the neighborhood and try to do missing middle the right way in this sense, right? I get it again. We're not hitting price points that appeals to the everyday family, but what we've seen is that the price points in this neighborhood already price out the everyday family. So anyway, that's I guess my answer to that. Thank you, Larry.
Yep.
One other thing, if I could just talk to the height issue, Larry, and I agree. And this was another reason that we like this site, was that it did sit well below the street. And we have a street, and we have we're hypothetically, our building footprint could be 10 feet below street level. So even if we do a 3-story attached home, we're still only showing from the street level that it's 2 stories above, 2.5. And I think that's a great question. I think it's an important aspect of this site and how we want to develop it, that does hopefully lend it to blend in a little better with the community as a whole.
Thank you. Yeah, it's ironic because when I first moved here 40 years ago, we were looking for homes with what I call walkout basements. And they do exist, but they're very rare. And this topography actually lends itself well to what I call a walkout basement style, since you have the drop off in the back and you can drop that back of the house down. So you're right, from a street appearance, it favors what you're trying to do. And it would be, from an appearance standpoint, probably a better fit for the neighborhood. So just let it go there. What I was going to say was, like Lindsay, I've also lived in a townhouse and had a good experience living in a townhouse before. So I'm not anti-townhouse. It just, as Lindsay mentioned, it's the way it's labeled as luxury living, coming into an area that we know we're losing affordable housing at the same time. All right. You want? Oh, go ahead, Dwight. I don't think that mic works. Just go ahead.
Icons, can you hear better with or without? No response.
Larry, could you repeat the questions? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear everything.
Let me.
Well, I'll talk about.
Now it's working.
So I would like to acknowledge that, yeah, this is kind of construction is going to be out of place for most of us in this neighborhood, and those service workers in the middle house.
I think we're getting feedback. Try without the.
That's not good feedback.
To my end. Try it now. We're suddenly getting feedback. I don't know why.
Let me add a second. Well, I'm gonna say it's the people here can hear.
Hey, Dwight, why don't you just step over here and I think it is actually.
Yeah, it's not. But there's more missing middle than just building affordable housing. It's about building resilient and rich people. This is in this neighborhood. These very desirable. Be realistic. We're not buying for the same houses. And most of these houses will be on a little bit and we can see this kind of tear down, and it's a choice between the 3 million that we're seeing when you and $1 million townhouses that we could get instead. And I don't think we should into these townhouses. I don't think that's going to happen. Most people are going to build system houses here, but
I like the way he answered the questions, especially around the ratio of people living in homes with a level. That was a good comeback.
This year, a lot of my friends in the neighborhood are selling out and moving from the places, but not gonna say the proceeds.
Larry, was there a question in there? I'm so sorry. I'm barely hearing. Okay.
Examples in our area go, look, see, I think it's the Williamsboro Court, go down Lassonville and get off at Marlow, and immediately adjacent to Lassonville is a community of attached housing that's been built. And it fits very well. They're not multi-story like this. Or look at the K's development off of Ramblewood, where you find apartments, you find townhouses, you find some large luxury houses. They've all been kind of mixed in together, and it seems to work. And it has made the neighborhoods appreciated, certainly part of it. So it can be done. So how you do it. And but to take us these houses, if they go on the market, they will be expensive for whoever buys them simply because the land is sitting in them. So that's the fact of life.
Let me just bring the audience up to date here, especially for our guests. What Ted was commenting on the fact that we do have a lot of examples of multifamily homes built within residential communities that are mixed with single family homes. They certainly have a place, they certainly have a fit. There's a problem a lot of people have is the missing middle process itself, and it takes residents out of the picture. And I think that's the bigger concern. Plus, it's not doing what it was intended to do. It's building to a different target resident than what we think it was intended to try to solve. And again, it's a nationwide problem. I don't think we need to get into that right now. So I'd like to stay with questions relative to your development and from your perspective, especially. And that's what we're getting a lot of feedback. That's why there was so much confusion about what you could hear and what you couldn't hear. And I was trying to, we've got that minimized now. We just have to get everybody in the audience to speak up and we'll be fine. So let me.
Larry, do you mind if I think you brought up a really good point about traffic on Dartmouth. And I've been in contact with the transportation department and trying to understand traffic calming measures and whatnot. And as we all know, they recently installed the speed hump, I believe, to calm traffic along Dartmouth between St. Albans and Windsor. But they also had a count on the number of daily drivers that passed that corridor. And post-project data was 1,246 average daily drivers. And this is from the City of Raleigh. And I can share this email with you. This is because they do research on all these to determine which streets should take precedent in traffic calming measures. and post project data, 1,246 average daily drivers. So what we're proposing on a 10-unit townhome development with 2 cars per 10 units, 20 cars, 2 times a day, 40 additional drivers a day, it equates to about a 0.02 increase in traffic that's already on Dartmouth. So I did want to at least let you know this is all public information that the City of Raleigh was willing to share.
I appreciate that.
It might be worth correcting that you're referring to Hardemont, not Dartmouth. Hardemont is where they added traffic calming and where you're referring to thousands of drivers. Dartmouth is the road that you're building on. There have been no additional traffic calming measures because I put in a request with the city and have been regularly updated from the city on it.
Okay.
Now Dartmouth already has speed humps on it that were installed maybe 3 years ago.
They're missing on about a third
2019.
of Dartmouth. They're missing
Right.
on about a third of the road. And so we put in a request for completion of that. But what you're referring to where the 10 to 12 townhomes will be is not adding 40 cars per day or so to a 1,000-car road. You're talking about a single neighborhood road. The road you're referring to is Hardemont, and that's a major pass-through, which is why there's so many cars on it. It's probably just worth correcting that data and information.
I'm happy to share what I received from the city, and they specified Dartmouth Road between St. Albans Drive and Windsor Place. So there may be something incorrect there. I'm just relying on information that was passed along to me. My apologies if that's incorrect.
I'll try to follow up between Kylie, Ryan, and myself, and we'll
Thank you.
get
Thank
that
you.
sorted out.
They are considering, there was an evaluation performed November 2021 for Dartmouth Road between Windsor Place and Converse Drive. And currently it doesn't take precedent above other streets that necessitate traffic calming measures. I think the average was 32 miles per hour in that 25 mile per hour zone. And that volume was 828 average daily drivers. So significantly less than this portion. But again, we could have our wires crossed here with the city. So I'll get you this information, Larry.
Okay. Ryan, do you intend to use the side street, I guess it's Woodside, as your entrance into the development and out of the development?
That's TBD. There's enough room between the alley and the lot on the left. And again, I'm confused. 2016, I guess. There's enough room, so we don't plan to use the alleyway. We'd love to be able to do something with the alleyway to make it a bit more presentable, perhaps. We'd love, in a perfect world, is to create a walkway, to Cane Land back there, and it's a pipe dream at this point. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's get back to the chat. We've talked about traffic issues, and I guess that's yet to be determined. Yeah, there was a question about the water and sewer connection. I think you're gonna have to do that through site plan anyway.
So there is a stream buffer in the rear. Somebody asked if there was a floodplain. There's a stream buffer. So in the backside of these lots, there is a stream buffer. So we'll need to keep our building footprint 50 feet off the rear of that stream buffer. And we want to do something really cool with that. We want to add to the landscaping in the rear and really work with the city to hopefully develop a better waterway in that rear.
Yes, for everybody's benefit, that's the big branch, I think, that runs behind your properties, which has its known problems. It's taken out a couple of houses further downstream. I don't know about this particular, whether it's subject to flooding or not. Maybe some people in the neighborhood could actually tell me that.
Well, and this probably is a good opportunity for me to speak to the drainage pipe that runs across the two. And this is probably one reason. And let me let's see here. I'm sorry if I could pull back up just I'm gonna pull up this the lot here, but right here where my cursor is, the home on the right has spent a lot of money to mitigate all the water that it's receiving from Dartmouth, and these lots just sit down, right? I mean, and water runs one place. To the left, you know, she's not been able to perform the necessary floodwater mitigation. So there is some floodwater issues that come across here, and there is a pipe that's here that does run to the back. I don't know if it's doing everything it needs to do. What we are going to do is take this and run it up the right-hand side of the property here. So we're going to catch everything that's coming down the street here, which you can't really see, and then run it back to where the city really wants it, which is in that catch basin along the back. Just to speak to that point, the water issue that they've had.
Okay, thank you. Trying to see if we caught all the questions that are in the chat. Is there anything that we've missed?
I was asking about the access to the garage spaces in the back. Where is that coming from?
That was to be determined, right, Ryan? Somebody was asking about the access to the garages in the back.
Oh, they will be rear load. The access will be off the left-hand side between the alley and the left property. That's where we'll access.
Okay.
It makes the most sense in our opinion. And you know, again, our idea is to try to hide the garages, right? A lot of people don't want to see that, and we'd like to be a little bit more discreet and put those in the rear and create a different streetscape that hopefully encourages more walkability.
Ryan, what is your time schedule for this project? In other words, you're going to gather feedback from the neighborhood, and I guess we haven't talked about the what do you call it? The limitations from the neighborhood, the covenants. But from what I saw, when I looked it up, it looked like most of the covenants, when people either changed homes or from the original home, most of the covenants were exempted out. So I don't think that's going to become much of a problem. From what I saw, you're probably checking into the same issue of local covenants and whether they're restrictive or not.
Yep. The restrictive covenants do exist, and they are, I believe, 50 to 60 years old. And many of the things noted no longer apply to the neighborhood as a whole. And that's why we've seen a number of lots that have opted out, and whether that be setbacks or the limitation of a 2-car garage solely, or et cetera.
Thank you. So what would be your timeline perhaps for the project? When do you expect to, how do you handle it since it comes in under missing middle? I guess the first thing is to settle the missing middle suit and then follow up shortly thereafter. Do you see some kind of plot plan being developed this year, next year?
Yeah, we're in the process. So we had to get with environmental first to understand the stream buffer in the rear. Very important. We need to be aware of that. And then that is going to allow us to understand our buildable envelope on the 2 lots. And that's why I'm not trying to be coy with the number of units. I honestly just don't know. We just received the boundary survey last week, and we're working with civil and our potential architect on the project now to understand the best use, whether that is 6 units or 8 units or 10 units. We think it's going to be somewhere in there. I don't think it'll be more. More would allow us to hit a lower price point. But I think that might constrict the size of the units. Honestly, we're looking for feedback, and you know, we need the community's input for what they'd like to see with this site. But you know, it'll be somewhere in that. Once we have a plot plan, we can start to kind of back into what does this look like. But we're just not there yet. So as far as a start time on construction, really hard to gauge. But you know, we're knee deep in it right now, trying to understand what and how and when and where and that kind of thing. So.
Well, I will publish your contact information and the website so people can go to look and direct them to send you questions and more input. And I guess at some point, once you get things lined out a little bit, since I assume you don't have a contact yet with city planning, you haven't gotten to that stage yet. And I know the routing for this is different. In other words, you have to go through the subdivision application, I assume at some point. It's different than, I'm not that used to it, but I know it's different from a typical rezoning. So I guess I'm looking for a way either for you to come back to us, update us, or for us to stay in contact with you.
I'd love that. I think we all would. Again, this is your community, you know, and we'd like to attempt to develop this in a way that makes sense for everyone. And so, yes, I'd love to get back on the agenda again with you, Larry. And, you know, it may be 3 months, maybe 4 months, 6 months. I'm not real sure, but I'm happy to stay in contact with you and to provide you with maybe monthly updates as to where we are and how we're progressing. And, you know, I do hope that, you know, we can continue to engage with the community and, you know, everybody about, you know, again, concerns or questions that they may have and how we can best approach this project.
Sounds good. David, you have a question?
About the lawsuit.
Yeah, I'm just, you keep saying that that this is going to be on hold because of a lawsuit. That lawsuit is maybe slowing down Hayes Barton's project for 17 townhomes. There's no other missing middle project that I'm aware of in the city. It's been delayed, stalled, or anything else because of what's happening in court over one project on Williamson's Drive in Hayes Barton. So I don't, you kept saying that like 4 or 5 times, and I'm understanding. Could you point to specifically which missing middle projects are now on hold because of that court case?
I think that's a good question for Christina Jones. That's going to come on very shortly and let her address that one.
Okay, because that answer is, I mean, Christina will come on, I'm sure, but that answer is none. The missing middle is still moving forward until something else happens. So this project will move forward. I like it. I think it's going to be great. And all I can add is it may not fit entirely the character of that neighborhood now, but 20 years from now, everything north to Millbrook will be completely different. I don't know why some people don't see what's happening. I've been going to these Midtown CACs for a while. There's none of those homes, none of those ranch homes will survive in 20 years. The whole area is just going to change dramatically.
I've heard a planner say the same thing.
Yeah, it's just, well, it's just the life. It's a market. So anyway, good luck with it.
Thank you, David.
All right. Ryan, Phillip, I think, is there anything else from the audience, either online or? I think the best thing to do is we'll just keep tabs on you and you can keep tabs on us and we'll just bring you back and you can keep us up to date. It's the process I'm curious about more than anything else because it's different. It's not the typical rezoning things that we normally hear. This process will be different. It's going to come in under a different set of guidelines. It's going to come in through a 2-lot combination as a subdivision probably. So it's going to be a real interesting project for us to follow as a community. And I'm glad we have that opportunity to do that. So I appreciate your being with us tonight and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
You don't have to stay with us.
Would it be possible? I'd like to hear what Christina Jones has to say, if that would,
Sure,
I don't know if she's
stay
going to
on.
speak to any of this, but yeah, I'll mute myself and stop talking now. Thank you.
Stay on as long as you'd like.
Hey, is it okay if I answer that, Larry?
Jump right into that.
Great. No, David is completely right. The only missing middle that's being held up is the Hayes Barton missing middle project because that one is under litigation. Every other missing middle project is still allowed to proceed even with the lawsuit going through.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, well, Christina, we've reached that point. Christina, our counselor, was with us tonight, and it's time for her to bring us up to speed with what she's doing on vacation. She's not really on vacation, but she's on hiatus. And she'll be coming back into session, I guess, in August. So maybe you'd like to update the audience on anything that's exciting for us to hear.
Yes, well, happy summer, everyone. Yes, we are on break. I did just go to the lake and to the beach over the last week and a half. So now I'm back into getting into the swing of things. We're pretty much all still meeting with residents. So if there's ever a question, please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us. If someone does happen to be on vacation, they'll let you know. But like me, I know that other counselors are taking meetings during this break as well. We are coming back. It'll be a pretty packed agenda on August 15th. We'll come back that Tuesday. The biggest thing that I want to make sure that you guys understand is the change to the public comments. So currently, well, no, not anymore, but prior to this, we did public comments the first and the third meeting, the first and the third Tuesday of the month. And now we've switched the first one. So what that led to is that we would have large public comments followed by a really long public hearing, and we would sometimes be there till like midnight. But more importantly than what time we're leaving, because it's once a week, it's really not, that was not the issue of why we wanted to change it, was that we didn't want anyone to lose time. So we guaranteed everyone 3 minutes during their public comments, but we wanted to give it the attention it deserves. So we separated it, and we're going to put public comments on the second Tuesday and leave the third one alone. So instead of it being the first and the third, it will be the second and the third week of the month. The evening ones will be on the second Tuesday at 7. It'll be directly following our work session. And then the third Tuesday will stay the same at 1 o'clock. We're just trying to make sure that more people can sign up. We don't ever want to make people feel like, oh, that's too many, because I've been super proud that there have been about 40 people for the last few months coming to every first Tuesday meeting. And we'd like to grow that. Us hearing from you and hearing your points of view is what makes our job, how it helps us to do our job. So we need to make more space for that. So that's the biggest thing that I want, because that's a big change. It might take some getting used to, maybe a few months. But please keep us your feedback. We'd love to hear your feedback. The other thing, I know we briefly spoke, well, 2 other things. Well, our city attorney, we did just wait. We did just offer a position. So we're waiting to hear back if that position has been accepted, and hopefully we can close up the city attorney role. And then the next role we'll be rolling into is city clerk. So I think I've spoken to you guys about it a few months ago. City clerk, there, as city council, we hire 3 positions: a city attorney, city manager, and city clerk. And we will begin looking at that process. There has been some mention of moving it underneath the city manager. It is not something that I personally am in favor of. I really feel that if we're chartered to hire 3 positions, we should definitely stay with that, unless there's an overwhelming reason. I haven't seen it yet. But what this will look like when we come back is that we'll have a committee put together to look at what the clerk's job is and how we can make sure that it's being best utilized. So that is coming up, and hopefully we'll have a new city attorney that we can all cheer on once we hear if they have accepted. And I want to say really big thank you to Midtown, especially to Larry. We went through this really, really great rezoning process, what I felt was really constructive in the computer drive. And I really do appreciate you guys sharing your opinions, and then Larry coming to the table, because I really do feel that as we do rezonings, it's about putting residents at the table to ask the questions directly to the developer, to staff, to the lawyer team, because when it goes back and forth, when I get the answers, then I go to you, or vice versa, there's always something lost in translation. So it's really beneficial for me to have everyone at the same table. And Larry did a great job in bringing that meeting together. And I think it resulted in something that we were able to champion. So I look forward to doing that more often, and to really including neighbors in all of our decisions. Something that I did want to ask all of you guys about is this heliport thing. I know that we discussed it at the last meeting, but from the last meeting into here, I have received a lot of feedback on how negative that. I was cool. We were at the last meeting. I was like, all right, cool. It seems like everyone's okay with it. And I'm starting to get the feeling that we're not. So I would really love, to hear your thoughts and your opinions on having that in Midtown. so that we can make the best decision possible. But I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. It's my quick update as we walk into the next session, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have.
I don't, as far as a helipad or heliport, I'm not sure exactly what it's gonna wind up to be. I don't know if there's anybody here that's outspoken against it. I may be wrong. Let me just ask. Is anybody here in the audience got a lot of opinion about the heliport, helipad, whatever? We discussed it pretty well. There is a lot of feedback on Facebook about the helipad, heliport, and there have been letters written to council about it. But I think the community, as far as I know, is fairly mixed on it. The important point is that whatever is added, if it's approved, that it not add to the noise level of the neighborhood. And I know it can't be restricted. I know it falls within FAA guidelines, but I think that's the main point. We get an awful lot of military helicopters. We get a lot of news helicopters, which don't seem to be restricted at all and do not fly very high. So I think we just don't want to add to the problem that already exists. They already exist in the community, just a question of getting more detail.
Cool. Thank you so much.
As far as the additional night for community input, I think that's a great move. Thanks mostly to you. But I will tell you that's, from me, my point of view, that's phase one. Those of us that have to sit there for public hearings on the second council meeting night, which is in the afternoon, so that the public hearings come about usually late in the evening with city business in between public comment and public hearings, is a very exasperating experience for the people, both the representatives for the developers and the representatives from the public that are trying to speak to the issue. So I'd like to see the next phase, we take that same approach and move public hearings right after public comment, and then do miscellaneous city business thereafter. So that
On
the second
the
council,
second meeting.
yeah,
We're
afternoon
okay.
meetings, yes, that's the ones that they have a tendency. I've commented on a couple of times when I get up there to speak that I can tell when you guys are getting up there and stretching and walking around trying to stay awake, that it's not a good time to be making city decisions when you're forced to go late into the evening. So
And I do want to say that our second council meeting, because it's at 1 o'clock, they don't typically ever go late into the night. They will go into the evening, like the early evening. That's the latest it's been. But the move to separate them will hopefully mitigate that, because now we have the first Tuesday that's just going to be scheduled for public hearings. So for the most part, we weren't doing a ton of really controversial, except for, of course, we did Shaw on the second Tuesday meeting. But typically we try to do like the non-controversial ones on that one. But since we're going to be dedicating one whole day entirely to public hearing and not using public comment, the goal is to put all of our public hearings that day and not have any on that second meeting. But I understand your point. We will definitely be keep an eye on it.
yeah, so it's a wait and see, I guess, leave it at that.
Yeah, because hopefully like I said, the goal is to put all of them on that first Tuesday, so that that second Tuesday or that third Tuesday, we wouldn't have any public hearings. It would be the goal.
I hope you guys get that latitude. I think you're gonna be overloaded, so I don't know if you'll have that.
Yeah, we've had, yeah, agreed. And so we can definitely look back at that if it becomes a problem, for sure.
That's it from my point of view. Anything from our audience, either online or physically? No, it doesn't look like it. Looks like people are falling asleep here. Well, thanks, Christina. Appreciate your spending the time with us again this evening, and always welcome here.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Change back to. Boy, changing things around here is not easy. Works sometimes. Okay. All right. Couple little things from me, and I think maybe we'll get out of here early for a change. Oh, I see I've got a lot of new messages. Yeah, I did.
The chat, there's something,
No?
no, there's nothing new, just
Okay. Good. Okay. Well, I've got a couple of things for you that I think you might be of interest to you, but before I do that, I'm going to switch it over to Bob Edgerton, who's here from us from the Southwest CAC tonight. And he also sits on the, make sure I get this right, and I probably won't. The group.
I can do that for you.
Good. Go ahead and do that for me.
Speaking for myself. No.
You got two hats.
Can you come up so people online?
You'll hear Bob. He's easy.
I think they can hear me.
Speak up.
Okay. Yeah, I've been Southwest Chair of CAC for about the last 5 years. And that's long enough, but we're continuing to go forward, and I'd like to invite you to come down and visit us online for now. We're somewhat in transit, looking for a home. We're back to where we were for 40 years in Carolina Pines. We've had a really good group, a cooperative group for about the last 40 years, but we're still virtual only. And you'll see our schedules post on the second Monday of the month. And if you follow the usual news on meetings, you'll see ours over here. Primarily, I think what I'm supposed to comment on is my viewpoint, not the Parks Board. I'm on the City Parks Board, Parks and Recreation, Greenways Advisory. Recently, we made a decision voting on Mine Creek, which is a good way of coming here, I guess.
It's actually at the very edge of the Midtown area. It's the Ridge Lock in particular.
We're so far away.
That's my neighborhood.
See, there you go.
Keep an eye on the area if you would, because I think there's some issues that we all need to talk about some more. I think we can do better than the idea now is to remove 2 bridges that go over the creek. Now, they were put there 50 years ago, not across the creek, but for the experience of being there in the serenity of the running water that comes constantly out of Shelly Lake. And the area is looking at 3 projects. There's a sewer line project on the west side of the trail. There's a sewer line project on the east side of the trail, and there's a project in the Parks Department to remove the 2 bridges and relocate the trail to the backyards of the people on the west side. They've had some significant problems with that. And I think we need to look at it if we're going to make a decision to take out those 2 bridges that were put there intentionally 50 years ago for an experience of watching the water flow going in peace and serenity. Now, are you talking about Greenway bridges? Yes, they're on the Greenway. Go over there and have a look. It's a nice place to go to. There's a nice parking lot right at the foot of Shelly Lake. You know, and take a walk and get a look at it. If you have opinions, I believe that Councilor Jones, formerly Christina, they're going to see this project again in August and be asked to vote on what's going to be done. I personally believe that we ought to spend the money to keep the bridges, to replace the bridges, you know, and go forward with the vision that was put there 50 years ago. If the members of the council and the community don't believe that, I'm more than willing to accept the result. I propose to Councilor Patton that if the pathway is in fact moved to the west, perhaps we can ask for a overlook or something that would allow for people to go into an area of peaceful and experience that I don't know the answer. But maybe in short, if council will take the item to committee, that would allow some direct discussion on the issue. The two bridges are supposed to cost $1 billion. That's something that I frankly not in a position to come to numbers. You know, where did they come from? Who did they go with? So the neighbors there have strong opinions, but I'm asking you to engage it in the next couple of 3 weeks. Have a look at it and let Larry know how you feel. Christina, and if you can get to her, Councilor Black would be the appropriate person. It's her district, essentially. Those decisions are very important. So, I'm saying, engage the issue, and let's try to get the best we can for the future. Yes, one of the sewer projects is going to cut down a swath of trees 30 feet wide and 100 yards long. Afterwards, it's going to be a big barren open slice through the woods. But so it was 50 years ago when they first built it. Trees will grow, my grandchildren will see them. So just look into it and engage the issue and let Larry and Christina know how you feel about it.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I guess everybody has probably seen the WRAL story that was on that, but then as you saw, there are some residents, I guess, in the townhomes that feel they're entitled to the part of the property they have behind that. But my guess is it's in the right of way in their backyard. I don't know if it's actually taking property from them.
There are existing easements, actually on both sides of the creek, because there's a sewer line on both sides of the creek. If they move the trail to the west side, there are a number of different changes to easements and proposals for fencing and distancing and all that kind of stuff. There are some documents available, you know, on the design phase of it. If you go to the city council presentation that was made a couple of weeks ago, the project was presented to council. That's one of those packages that's too large to email. You have to download it directly.
There's a link, somebody just posted a link to the report.
Okay, but that would be good to look at. It shows you the whole thing, and one of them is really a long presentation. Yeah. But just if you would engage it and make sure that it doesn't sneak past you, because even though it may be slightly across the line, I believe the community is Ridgelock.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, has been there a long time. Their view is that it is good, affordable area, you know, to be in. There's probably there, and yes, there are townhouses. So just go right around and have a look. Good place to go on Sunday afternoon, see a nice cool spot. Yes, sir.
Not have a major impact on access to the greenway for those who live on the east side of the creek, because of that, like if you come down Norfolk and want to get on that greenway there. Do something.
Yeah, actually, you're right, because you have to jump the creek. But there, the topography of the area is that it has been the greenway, and again, Bob's opinion, we have upgraded greenways to transportation commuter routes. Greenway started out as being a path on what was normally the sewer outfall line. They're built through the low areas. That's where the land was. That's where the easements were. People walked there. But now we've gotten to where greenways need to be paved 10 feet wide, capable of supporting those vehicles. You know, is that what we really intended for all greenways? I don't know. I can tell you though, on this particular greenway, when you get to Millbrook Road, there ain't no way. Because the pathway narrows down to a wooden bridge that's about 4 feet wide, has 2 90-degree angles in it, and it goes under Millbrook Road.
Yeah, that's an issue. At some point, it's gonna have to get brought up to the Greenway Committee, I think. There are a lot of areas where you have access on one side of the stream, but you do not have access on the other. And I think of several of them actually, in this particular one, that's going to be a problem. I'm going to bring Lindsay on, since Lindsay sits on the board with you, and that Lindsay add to the conversation.
Please,
Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Hey, Lindsay.
Hey there. So I transitioned from
Left
being
us.
in person
Yeah.
to at home. It's much cooler in my house than it is in that room. So
Yeah, sorry about that. to the people that are here.
it's okay. I've been out to this site maybe a half dozen times, speaking with the residents, and then sat in on every single presentation and community engagement open house. And so this particular movement of the bridge has been of the bridge and the trail. Well, let me rephrase. Rearranging the trail. This has been proposed 3 times. And in the first instance, the community came out in droves and said, we don't want this. We really don't want this. The community itself was built right next to the Greenway, knowing that the Greenway was where it was. So I think the intention of the designers of the neighborhood was to coexist next to the Greenway Trail and the bridges. And so the first attempt, the community said, we don't want this. And so the city said, okay, we won't do this. And then they came back again and said, we want to move the trail. And the community said, we don't want this. And there is literally, this is the thing that kind of gets to me, because I think integrity and keeping your word is so important. There is a written statement from the city to the community stating that they would honor the wishes of the community and not move the trail. So now they're rescinding that, and the voters for the 2014 Parks bond voted on a measure that would replace the bridges and maintain the Greenway Trail where it was. That cost was just over $200,000. Well, it's been almost 10 years. So the cost has gone up significantly because they just didn't get around to it. So now, with the way things have changed and shifted over time, it would be exponentially more expensive. There would be more environmental impact, and there would be more tree removal. And that is a concern. But my concern in terms of learning the history of this, and that this has been brought up numerous times, and there are actual written statements from city staff saying we will honor your wishes and not do this. That's where I have a problem with it, because it's just the taxpayers voted on it in 2014, knowing that the proposal was to replace and maintain the bridges where it was, and the community was told that their wishes were going to be honored. And with the easement, what the homeowners have been offered, and there's 14 townhomes right there, 14. But the community has been offered 70,000. And those townhomes apiece are worth at least each one $250,000. And these are mostly folks who are either just starting off in terms of home ownership, or they are retirees. This is your quintessential affordable housing community. And so the way I see it is that this would not go over so easily if it were a community with significant wealth. And that is something that I have a major problem with, because we can bully communities that are low income and just bulldoze right over what they want. despite having it in writing that we're going to honor their wishes. And that is just really not okay. We really need to stop doing that. So I am very aware that it would be significantly more expensive to replace the bridges and maintain the trail where it currently is, and that it would be more tree removal. And yes, it would be more of an environmental impact to do it there. But with that, I also say we really need to do a better job of maintaining the things that we construct over time and not let things go so long so the costs and the issues with them build up. It's like if I don't keep changing the oil in my car, the engine's going to lock up and then it's going to get a lot more expensive. So if I don't fix the stuff in my house, it's going to get a lot worse. And so I did offend some folks when I used the word neglect in June. But if they haven't been if it's been this long, I wouldn't say that that is regularly maintained. It may not be neglect, but it's not been regularly maintained and kept up to the standard. So I know that those are some big words, but I just don't think we're doing a great job of maintaining things equitably and consistently. And it is absolutely one of the oldest sections of the Greenway. But if you're not aware, just up until a few years ago, we had 4 community centers in the city of Raleigh that still didn't have air conditioning. And I just think that is unconscionable, unconscionable and unacceptable. So before we go buying and building new community centers and parks and things, we need to keep all of the other ones up to the standard that we are requiring for our standard of living. And so that's where I'm gonna call out those things of neglect and inequitable maintenance, because that's what it is. And for transparency, I do live in the Ridgelock neighborhood that is next to that, but I don't live in that part of the neighborhood. So it doesn't impact my backyard per se. So I don't know how I would feel if I did live there, because it literally, I can't see that spot from where I live. It's quite a walk. But I can imagine how I would feel if this has come up multiple times over decades. Right. And I keep saying, I don't want this. And you keep saying, okay, fine, we won't do this. And then you're like, well, guess what? We're going to do it anyway. Like, I'm not comfortable with that, even though it is a significant increase in cost to go ahead and replace the bridges where they are. So that's my take on it. And Bob and I have been sitting right next to each other in the meetings. And I will say also, there are other bridges on the Mine Creek Trail, and they're not being replaced.
Right. Believe me, I know your issue. Yes. Thanks, Lindsay. I will definitely pay you a visit and maybe take a little tour.
Come on over. Yeah, we'll go for a walk with or without the baby.
Sounds like with Christina online and having heard you probably, it sounds like Bob's recommendation to get it into committee, as I've said many, many times. Some things need further discussion. Christina said it before, and this is one I think definitely needs more equity, and it needs to be in a committee for further discussion. So appreciate your time and thank you. All right, gang, I see we are unfortunately approaching 9 o'clock. Just gonna go ahead, Ted.
I wanted to add just one opinion here is that I help pay for those greenways. I use the greenways, and I think I have just as much right to be considered as the people who live next to them, because those are property of all the citizens. Just like Dartmouth Drive is, it's not just the people who live on, they're not their private driveways, those are public, taxpayer-owned property. And I think, I love the neighborhoods and we want our neighborhoods good, but the neighborhoods sometimes are very self-centered and just damn the rest of the citizens to use these things, and they are things that all of us need to use and pay for.
Well, I think the point is you want to hear from everybody. I think that's what you're touching on. And yes, I agree with you. Yes. All right. Try to wrap up here and get you out of here. One thing I did want to tell everybody, we heard the presentation by the exchange, and we talked about the Greenway. And there was discussion that the Greenway would be on their property up to St. Albans. I have gotten confirmation that the Greenway will indeed be extended, as we have suspected for many years, up to Quail Hollow Drive. So where Quail Hollow Drive dead ends, basically, I'm not sure whereabouts, how it's going to orient to Quail Hollow Drive. It is going to come up that way and into Eastgate, into Hickory Hills, into Quail Hollow as a greenway. The bad side is it will be tied into the Green Street project of stormwater, and budgeting for that is probably 2 years away. So whether the Greenway portion is 2 years away, I don't know, but the project itself, which is combined, is probably budgeted and will be executed probably 2 years from now. But it's good for the community. Now we have a pathway of a greenway actually coming north, which I don't think we had anything like it before. And of course, if the bridge ever gets built, we'll be able to tie back into the Crabtree Creek Greenway. So it's good signs for everything moving north. The other thing everybody should be aware of, the North Corridor, everybody's aware of BRT and the New Bern Avenue and the Southern BRT route. Well, they are considering still the Northern Corridor is supposed to be a connectivity to Midtown. How they're going to do that is up for discussion. So I just advising everybody to pay attention to it, because I think they'll make a decision towards the latter part of this year. Right now it's heading, I think, up Atlantic Avenue, but they want to connect somehow over to Six Forks. I don't know how they're going to do it. There are some logical ways to do it, but I don't think that's what's being considered. So pay attention to the Northern Corridor. It affects us, and a lot of people have a say into it. So should be coming up this fall. That's it for me. Anybody else? Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
guys.
Thanks. You're welcome.